Uku Eta, that the House do report receive the
I'm glad to have you join us again on the program from the National Assembly. I am Ignatius Nkwo. Well, in a short while, members of the House of Representatives will reconvene for the plenary of Thursday, the 6th of July, 2017. From the other paper, the House has scheduled 4 motions and 5 bills for consideration. One of these 5 bills is a bill for an act to amend the Nigerian Communications Commission Act. Well, all the 5 bills will be coming for second reading. But as usual, we always have with us the Chairman House Committee on Rules and Business, Representative Emmanuel Okejev. He's always here to tell us more on what to expect. Thank you for joining us again this morning.
Good morning, Ignatius. Good morning, Nigerians. I think I should add that the bill that you mentioned on the amendment of the Nigerian Communications Act is targeted at making sure that all monies collected by the Nigerian Communications Act are remitted to the Federation account in accordance with Section 162 of the 1999 Constitution. There's also an executive bill that is coming up for second.
Thank you once more.
Thanks for having me as usual.
All right. Well, as the chairman has just said, we still expect that there might be matters that will come under public urgent importance. And when that comes, it becomes part of the day's deliberation. We'll now, play you a repeat of the House plenary because members are yet to commence sitting. But as soon as they reconvene and sitting commences, we'll take you back to the Green Chamber.
The reports of petition by petition against Obia Macaulay against NNPC for refusal to obey the court orders and previous House orders. Number 7, that the House do receive the report of the Committee on Public Petition on the petition by Professor Chubike Uche against the dismissal from the University of Nigeria and Nsukka. That the House do receive the report of the Committee on Public Petition by Kisha T. Alabura against the National Youth Service calls for unlawful termination of appointment. Mr. Speaker, the 9th one, that the House do receive the report of the Committee on Public Petition by Kerim Fatai Olanira against the Federal Road Safety Commission on unlawful termination of his appointment. And lastly, that the House do receive the report of the Committee on Public Petition by Ude Abarachika against the Federal Road Safety Commission on wrongful termination appointment. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
First order of the day, honorable colleagues, is the 3rd reading of a bill for an act to establish the Federal University of Petroleum Resources, EFRUN.
My name is Mohamed Tair Monguno. I represent Marke Monguno, Ganzai, Federal Constituency of Borno State. Acting leader by the pleasure of Mr. Speaker, I hereby move that a bill for an act to establish the Federal University of Petroleum Resources, EFRUN, and for other related matters connected therewith, House Bill 381, be read the 3rd time. I so move.
Ishaka Ayokunle.
Honorable Ibrahim Ayokunle Ishaka. I represent the very good people of Ifoyo Federal Constituency. I'm from Ogun State, Mr. Speaker. I rise, Mr. Speaker, to second this all-important motion on a bill for an act to establish the Federal University of Petroleum Resources, EFRUN, and the other matters connected therewith. I so second, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable colleagues, the question is that the bill be now read the 3rd time. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, a bill for an act to establish the Federal University of Petroleum Resources, EFRUN, and for other matters connected therewith, third reading.
Bill read the third time and passed.
I move that a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the National Institute for Cancer Research and Treatment and for connected purposes, House Bill 702, be read the third time. I so move.
Lovett Idisi is my name. I represent the good people of Etiop East and West Federal Constituency of Delta State. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion that this bill be read for the third time. I so second.
Honorable colleagues, the question is that the bill be now read the third time. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it. And I invite the clerk to read the long title of the bill.
A bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the National Institute for Cancer Research and Treatment and for connected purposes. Third reading.
Bill read the third time and passed.
Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, I'll be asking that this matter be stepped down. As we have stated, committees of Rules and Business and Justice were supposed to sit and examine the provisions of this bill and advise the House. We did sit, and the report was written, and it was forwarded to the Chairman Justice. Unfortunately, this morning I discovered that it had not been returned from Justice. And so we are hamstrung, but I think the matter will be sorted out shortly. So I pray that the matter be stepped down to resolve the matter very, very shortly. I'm sorry about that.
Consideration of bill stepped down by leave of the House.
I am Awaji Nombek Dagomie Abiante. I represent Andoni Opobo Nkoro Federal Constituency. I am a Rivers man. I rise to move that a bill for an act to amend the Maritime Operations Coordinating Board Act, Cap M4, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, reconstituting the Maritime Operations Coordinating Board for effective control of all maritime operations in Nigeria's territorial waters and the exclusive economic zone, create the Maritime Security Fund, establish anti-piracy offenses, and for related matters. Be read a second time. I so move.
Honorable Abente, please lead the debate.
We all know that Nigeria has a coastline of about 853 kilometers. That has made Nigeria a very important maritime nation. Nigeria has a responsibility to enforce the international conventions she has appended signatures to. But primarily among these conventions is the safety of life at sea, the SOLAS Convention. This amendment is aimed primarily at reconstituting the board to ensure that it functions much more effectively. The amendment is also to ensure that there is fund made available and set aside for maritime security. The amendment will also guarantee that the issues of piracy is contained and controlled. Mr. Speaker and my colleagues, it is reported that Nigeria loses about $1.5 billion every month. $1.5 billion every month as a result of piracy activities, as a result of the abduction of crew members on board vessels that are within the territorial waters of this country. We also know, Mr. Speaker, that the shipping activities as it relates to Nigeria has been affected to the extent that most shippers would not want to get into our territory. What are the reasons? The reasons advanced are that our waters are not very safe. Something has to be done to make the water safe. We have to encourage the Nigerian Navy to function effectively. This attitude, these actions, these infractions, Mr. Speaker, and my colleagues, have also led to rise in the cost of freight to this country. Insurance companies charge extra to allow their vessels call within Nigerian ports. It needs to be controlled, it needs to be contained, Mr. Speaker. It has also affected the freight volume that comes into this country. Invariably, it has affected the economy of Nigeria. And we don't have to let this continue, especially at this time when we have issues of recession within the economy. So everything that needs to be done to ensure that the freight volume increases and that the freight charges are also reduced should be encouraged. Mr. Speaker, the issues of piracy affect even the ordinary man within the coastal environment. Travels between Port Harcourt and Bonny is always very dangerous, Mr. Speaker. Boats are abducted. Their drivers are abducted. Boats are stolen. Women are raped. Properties are lost. Mr. Speaker, if this amendment is taken, it will help to improve the safety and security of the maritime environment. Mr. Speaker, this amendment will also assist to give impetus to the enforcement on the Sea Fisheries Act. Because of the illegal activities on the sea, fishermen around our areas, those in Brass, those in Agbama, Lokmile, or Irokoto, no longer engage in the economic activities that they are used to because of fear of pirates. Mr. Speaker, in generating the funds for the Maritime Security Fund, we don't need to go too far in generating the resources. Because as we speak, companies operating within the coastal environment are contributing so much, but in making these contributions, they are not coordinated. Owners of vessels that call at our offshore points, they usually require escorts. And these escort duties are they're not very free. They pay. But if this fund is set aside, it will become a primary responsibility of the Navy to provide security within these areas. The funds will be coordinated, and these IOCs will not be made to pay anything extra than what they have contributed to the fund. Mr. Speaker, the fund also intends to draw from the revenues accruing to NIMASA under the Cabotage Act. Because if there is no security, if there is no safety within the coastal environment, even the functions and activities of that agency will be impeded. The inputs coming in from the coastal trade will be impaired. Mr. Speaker, this amendment will also guarantee the status of Nigeria relevant and relative to the International Maritime Organization. We are not sure, it is not certain, if Nigeria is still on the white list of the IMO. And this is as a result of the issues of security within our maritime environment and the Gulf of Guinea. Mr. Speaker, this amendment will enhance the capacity of the Nigerian Navy to make it an agency, to make it an institution that will be very prepared and ready, capable to enforce the requirements of law within our coastal environment. It will also keep us ready for any eventuality in the event that there are infractions from any side, any day, any time. Mr. Speaker and my distinguished colleagues, I want to urge all of us to please support this amendment. It has come at a very wonderful and good time, at a time when we are all concerned with the issues of insecurity in Nigeria. This bill, when amended, would help to solve most of the insecurity challenges within the maritime domain of Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, I so submit. Thank you.
Honorable Dennis.
I remain Honorable Amadi Dennis, member representing Udi, Executive Federal Constituency of Enugu State. Mr. Speaker and distinguished colleagues, the emphasis of this important bill to our economy cannot be underestimated. Mr. Speaker, our colleague who moved this bill for amendment have seen the volume of money being lost by Nigeria in terms of revenue on our maritime activities. Most of the exporters we have in the country that trade on crude and other products are often required to provide performance bond because of the risk implications of our waterways, especially the coastal areas. Mr. Speaker, this is an industry or a sector that will activate a lot of operations for our economy, for people who live within the riverine areas, for people who are playing in most activities where they are locked within water areas. Therefore, my colleagues, I encourage all of us to support this bill. We cannot tap the potentials of our waterways unless we open up that sector by putting in place laws that will effectively check security challenges, laws that will put in place our export potentials to become a bankable product to international communities. We cannot continue to talk as a nation that have water, that have a landmass, without taking full advantage of the waterways. Most of the ports we created in the last government are lying idle. Some are within the Niger Delta area, some are within the South-South, some are within the eastern Nigeria. They are inoperative. Most of them have been sand-filled. Dredging activities that needed to be done there are not being pursued because there's no effective board that checks the movement of vessels, movement of batches in all the waterways that we have within the country. The way we have activities within the land area, in our motorways, from one part of the country to the other, that is the same way we are linked between the south, the whole south, and partly part of the north. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I encourage my colleagues that this is a bill that will bring control, a bill that will bring fiscal responsibility to a board that will take charge and take our nation to the next level and deepen our economy and take us out of recession. We cannot continue to talk of unemployment without addressing and taking full advantage of what nature has given to Nigeria. Therefore, I encourage my colleagues to support this bill. It is a bill that is taking up the hanging fruits within the landmass of Nigeria and within the waterways. I so support, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
My name is Babatunde Gabriel Kolawole, member representing Nakoko, Southeast Southwest Federal Constituency. I am from Ondo State. Mr. Speaker, I want to believe that this bill will further correct the impression that subsidy has been removed. To me, Mr. Speaker, the government has only succeeded in transferring subsidy from the government to the pockets of the ordinary Nigerians. And I think that this very bill, if passed, will correct that very impression. As we speak, Mr. Speaker, our vessels, mother vessels, prefer to bat onshore lumen instead of coming down to our waterways in Lagos, just because they are able to transact in foreign currency.
Consider and call such agencies to order. If Mr. Speaker so permit, I wish to lay this petition before the House.
Please proceed and lay the petition. Honorable EJ.
My right, Honorable Speaker and dear colleagues, My name is Honorable E.J. Agbonyima, representing the good people of Ego, Bubaka Federal Constituency, Edo State. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have a list of petitions before this Honorable House. One of the petitions before this Honorable House, Mr. Speaker, by Mr. Christopher I. Egbon, is seeking the intervention of this House to address the issue of government-employed medical practitioners refusing to attend to patients, but rather referring them to private clinics. He notes in his petition that doctors and nurses no longer adhere to the oath they have sworn to, which is to practice the profession which of course the truth and oath upon. Mr. Speaker, I also have other petitions before this Honorable House, a petition by Chukwuka Emmanuel Bosa Esquire on orchestrated case of extreme collapses, desire, neglect, and masterminded agenda of perpetual penury meted out to Adawari community, Beseni, in Junegua local government area of Bayelsa State, by Shell Petroleum Company, SPDC, and the Ministry of Petroleum Resources. 2, petitioner by another CO, Agbekemi, against the Ministry of Power on non-compliance with the 6th, 8th Assembly resolution of the House of Representatives and the order of the Office of the Head of Service, Civil Service of the Federation, respectively, to deliver to the Ministry of Power. Thirdly, petition by Chief Barrister Morrison Onunu on behalf of Wanchuku Lorenta Chinwe and 4 others against the Petroleum Product Pricing and Regulatory Agency on non-compliance with the House of Representatives resolution in respect of their wrongful disengagement. 4, petitioner Mr. Unwanga G. Lewis against Delta Energy Generation Company Limited on grounds corruption, contract fraud, and unlawful withholding of contract value in the tune of $46,180,000 awarded by Delta Energy Generation Company Limited to Enoga Marine Trans Service Limited since 2011. Mr. Speaker, finally, petitioner that is Arise Network of Nigeria against NAPINS and SPDC in tender number NG01020259 for pension of marine service security vessel. Mr. Speaker, may I use the opportunity to lay this petition before this Honorable House?
Please proceed and lay the petitions. Honorable Rita.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and distinguished colleagues. My name is Rita Oji, member representing Ajeromi Ifelodu Federal Constituency from Lagos State. Mr. Speaker and distinguished colleagues, I have a series of petitions, and number 1 of it is petition by Mr. Pascal Eseri against Abuja Local Government Council area of Bayelsa State, the Executive Chairman, the Secretary, and the Treasurer of the Council, in respect of non-payment of 27-month accrued salary of $4,050,000 and severity allowance of 2.5 million naira. The second one is petition by Ojako Maxwell Ekunife against Bureau of Public Enterprises of non-payment of his pension. The third one was a petition by Mr. Cyprian Ikewamadi against the University of Calabar for non-payment for renovation in the house A114 and 6B State Housing Estate, University of Calabar. And finally, the fourth one is petition by J.O. Agu Esquire on behalf of 35 casual workers of National Youth Crop Research Institute, Umudike Umaya, against the management
of the House of Representatives, where members have reconvened for Thursday's plenary. Don't forget you can also watch us live on NTA Parliament channel on 306 StarTimes Bouquet. I am Ignatius Nkwo. At the moment, members are now submitting petitions from the various constituencies. So far, 4 petitions have been submitted, and then all the petitions submitted have been referred to the House Committee on Public Petitions. From the other paper of today's plenary, the House is expected to receive 3 reports. One of the reports will be coming from the House Committee on Industry. But 2 of them will actually be coming from that committee. While 5 bills have been scheduled for consideration, 4 motions will be coming for consideration as well.
The winning, it has announced on its database around 12 midnight and 1 a.m. on Sunday, the 10th, 2016. Mr. Speaker, the petitioner is asking the House to help them in collecting this money. Mr. Speaker, if you allow me to lay the petition on the...
Please proceed and lay the report. Honorable Johnson.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And my distinguished colleagues, I am Honorable Johnson Egwahide Oguma, representing all the people of Etako Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, and my colleagues, I have a petition from one Mr. Bello Bala, an Executive Director, Disabled Rehabilitation Foundation of Nigeria, with an office at the Regional Secretariat Suite 11A, DMB Plaza, Plot 410, Wuse Zone 1, in respect of the landed property they applied for since 2010 to enable them build a vocational center for the disabled, just to help them move them out of begging and remove them from the streets of Abuja. Since 2010, the fees paid, the land not granted. So, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Disabled Rehabilitation Foundation, I please apply and beg to please lay the petition before you.
Please proceed and lay the petition. Oh, okay. Igwe Abola. Are you on Igwe now?
Right, Honorable Speaker, sir, honorable colleagues, I remain Honorable Pastor Kehinde Agbola, and in the brotherhood of our people, I solidarize. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have a petition from a constituent, Mr. Enoch Adeojo, against one Mr. Sassin Saye, the Lebanese, the MD of Person Science Construction Company, Abuja. It is a business agreement in between the 2 of them. The business was successful. Unfortunately, the MD of Person Science Construction Company, Abuja, had reneged in fulfilling his own obligation. It's rather unfortunate that the case had gone to the court, and my client also won. And the same man who was asked to pay 19.46 million, up to date, had not even obeyed the court of this land. Mr. Speaker, if I'm permitted to submit this petition, the petitioner will be grateful to have the House mediating in this matter. Mr. Speaker, sir.
Please proceed and lay the petition. all petitions referred to Committee on Public Petitions. Honorable members, the first business of the day is presentation of 3 reports of the Committee on Industry, standing in the name of Honorable Abubakar Hussein Moriki. Honorable members will recall that the bills were referred to the committee on Thursday, 14 July 2016, Wednesday, 23rd November 2016, and Tuesday, 18 October 2016, respectively. The reports ready for presentation. Honorable Moriki is now invited to present them.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, distinguished colleagues. My name is Abubakar Husseini Moriki. I represent the people of Shinkafi and Zurmi Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I am from Zamfara State. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I have 3 reports that are ready for presentation. You would recall that these bills, 3 bills, were referred to our committee for necessary legislative processes. And I'm delighted to report that the legislative processes at the committee level have now been completed, and the reports of the referrals are now ready for presentation. So, Mr. Speaker, one of the bills is that we would want to present is that the House do receive the report of the Committee on Industry on a bill for an act to make it mandatory for tires to bear manufacturing and expiry dates, and to prohibit the importation of used, substandard, and expired tires, and for other related matters, HB 499, referred to the committee on the 21st of July 2016. And again, Mr. Speaker, that the House do receive the report of the Committee on Industry on a bill for an act to repeal the Small and Medium-Scale Industries Development Agency Establishment Act 2003 and to establish the Small and Medium-Scale Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria to regulate, oversee, coordinate, monitor, and evaluate the developmental activities and operations of the micro, small, and medium enterprises in Nigeria, and amend the Small and Medium-Scale Enterprises Development Agency Act to expressly provide for the agency whose power to protect artisans, market women, and traders, and to organize them in clusters for optimum benefits and for other related matters, HB 803 and 808, referred to the committee on the 23rd of November 2016. And again, Mr. Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues, that the House do receive the report of the Committee on Industry on a bill for an act to establish the Chartered Institute of Training and Development of Nigeria, a body charged with the responsibility to regulate the practice and the profession of training and development and for other related matters, HB 401, referred to the committee on the 18th of October 2016. Honorable Speaker, distinguished colleagues, with the leave of the House, the reports are now ready to be laid before the House.
Any seconder? Honorable Chukwuemeka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, I'm Honorable Dr. Chukwuemeka Ujam, representing the good people of Nkano East, Nkano West Federal Constituency, and I'm from Enugu State. I rise to second the motion that these 3 reports be received by this Honorable House as moved by Honorable Moriki. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it. Honorable Moriki, please proceed and lay the reports. First order of the day, honorable colleagues, Commencement of debate on the general principle of a bill for an act to establish a regulatory framework for the water resources sector in Nigeria, provide for the equitable and sustainable development, management, use, and conservation of Nigeria's surface water and groundwater resources, and for related matters, standing in the name of the House Leader. Honourable members recall the bill was read the first time on Thursday, 5th May 2017. I now invite the Leader to move that the bill be now read the second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, I rise to move for a bill for an act to establish a regulatory framework for the water resources sector in Nigeria, provide for the equitable and sustainable development, management, use and conservation of Nigeria's surface water and groundwater resources, and for related matters, HB 1021. Mr. Speaker, I so move.
Honourable Dixon, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I remain Dixon Taki. I represent Makurdi, Goma Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Benue State. I rise this morning to second the motion as heavily moved by my leader. I so second.
Leader can now lead the debate.
Thank you once again, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I will touch on the salient points of this bill and allow the chairman, with your kind permission, of the Water Resources Committee to add flesh to it. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, the National Water Resources Bill is a comprehensive bill that intends to regulate the use and the conservation of Nigeria's water supply. The bill guarantees our right to use water, but guides against private ownership of water and ensures that the water resources of the nation are protected and managed in a sustainable and equitable manner for the benefit of all Nigerians. It is almost akin and similar to the PIB bill in the oil industry because of the comprehensive nature and the way it unbundles the water sector of Nigeria. When passed into law, it will trigger monumental change, and we'll see that water resources of this country is unbundled to encourage the public-private participation that will connect and build a strong nexus between the national water resources and the value chain in the environment, agriculture, health, inland waterways, solid minerals, forestry, electricity generation, emergency management, meteorological and hydrological sectors. The bill, it has certain areas, different agencies that it has set up under this one umbrella water resources bill. Now, these areas include the National Council of Water Resources, the Nigerian Water Resources Regulatory Commission, the River Basin Development Authorities, Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, and the National Water Resources Institute. I will take them piecemeal. The National Council on Water Resources will be established as the apex advisory body on the review of national water-related legislation, water resources master plan, and policies. The Council shall be chaired by the Minister of Water Resources, with membership comprising of state commissioners for water resources or any other person responsible for water resources in the state. Mr. Speaker, the Nigeria Water Resources Regulatory Commission, which is another commission under the bill, will also be established to provide economic and technical regulation of all aspects of national water resource provision, ensure safety and quality of water resources development, promote competition in the water resource sector, protect developers and suppliers of public water resources under the schedules to the bill from unfair practices as provided in Section 99 of this National Water Resource Bill, and shall issue licenses to persons or corporate establishments that intend to undertake activities in the water sector. Mr. Speaker, this bill seeks to reinvent the existing River Basin Development Authority and expand the scope for more viability. After the bill becomes law, what we will have will be 12 strong River Basin Development Authorities. Anambra Imo River Basin Development Authority, Benin Owena River Basin Development Authority, the Chad Basin Development Authority, Cross River Basin Development Authority, Hadejia Jamari River Basin Development Authority, the Lower Benue River Basin Development Authority, Lower Niger River Basin Development Authority, the Niger Delta River Basin Development Authority, Ogun Osun River Basin Development Authority, Sokoto Rima River Basin Development Authority, the Upper Benue River Basin Development Authority, the Upper Niger River Basin Development Authority. In other words, every nook and corner of the Federation is covered. The Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency, to be established by this bill, will prepare and project government policy in the field of hydrology, work with local and international meteorological services, agencies and institutions to issue forecasts for floods and other water-related issues, carry out geophysical investigation for sitting groundwater development projects for dam foundation and saline water intrusions. Mr. Speaker, the National Water Resources Institute has also been created under this bill, and that will also be responsible for the promotion and development of training courses in water resources management and perform such ancillary services on planning of water resource management and river basin development courses in water resource engineering. To this end, the bill is all-encompassing and contains the solution to problems affecting water resources sector in Nigeria. It is not enough for us to clamor so much for the petroleum industry bill, which is very important. But the water sector, which sustains and cuts across this country, which is actually necessary and required, both even on the commercial level and for the sustenance of livelihood of Nigerians, is just as critical as the petroleum industry bill. And I urge members to support this bill so that it can go for second reading, go to the committee. But prior to that, I'm sure the chairman, Water Resources, Honorable Pategi, might want to add some flesh to this skeletal presentation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chairman, Water Resources.
Mr. Speaker, the leader, my colleague, the leader has done justice to the bill by giving the various aspects of this bill. You can see that the key words here is that of developing the sector, managing Nigerians' water, surface water and groundwater. Essentially, this is an executive bill that we've all clamored for in the sector. It's been in the working since 2006. Why? Because of the important nature of water. All the stakeholders, the state government, the private sector, and the public sector had to be carried along in midwifing a series of drafts of this bill, 4 in all, since 2006, culminating in the approval by the National Executive Council of the National Water Policy in 2016. Now, in the main body of the bill, we have issues relating to ownership of water. This bill wants to take ownership of the assets of the river basin authorities, irrigation facilities, dams, and all that back to the catchment areas, where for the first time, the state governments are going to have representation on the boards of these river basins. I'll give you an example. The Gurara Water Agency has a board, and for the first time, once we pass this bill, the representatives of Kaduna State Government and that of the Federal Capital Territory will be on the board of that River Basin Authority. It's going to be streamlined. The reason is that we believe that these assets the ownership of it should revert back to the people that it is meant for. We have littering the Nigerian landscape, so many assets, dams, without it being used, either for the purpose of irrigation or for the purpose of bulk water supplied to the population centers. We have dams that are 100% complete, and just to reticulate has been a problem, so it's not been useful. The reason the bill now wants representation of those that it is meant for on the board is so that it can be made useful, so that the welfare and the well-being of the people can be enhanced. Taking us through the various sections of this bill, I will like us to know that the reason for the bill is to commercialize the river basin development authorities and ensure that they are self-sustaining. Secondly, it is to establish a water use and licensing framework to ensure sustainable financing of the water sector. Thirdly, the bill will ensure that the water sector is able to support the objectives of the federal government in the agricultural sector. We are talking of transforming the Nigerian society and our economy. This is one of the critical ways that we can bring that to bear. Fourthly, the bill intends to establish a regulatory framework for the allocation and use of water resources to ensure the proper prioritization of water use, the management of water basin level, the creation of an enabling environment for investment by creating a clear regulatory framework. Also, clear strategies for the allocation of rules and responsibilities. Who is going to do what? What will be the responsibility of local government, the responsibility of the state government, and the responsibility of the government at the center, the federal level. So that when an asset is procured and implemented and a dam comes into use, who is going to do the reticulation that will make that bulk water usable to our people? Finally, the management of groundwater resources from the perspective of licensing, both the boreholes and the borehole drillers. Right now, what you have is the practice of anybody going anywhere, drilling boreholes without any regulation, without anybody, no authority to regulate and guide the drilling of boreholes. We have instances where we have seen that there is a relationship between the quality of the health of the citizens and the quality of the water that the people drink. When you drill a borehole without regulation, without ensuring the safety of that water that comes out of the water well, what you have sometimes leads to cancerous problems for the body. Where, for instance, where you have a factory, the chemicals are dumped straight into the surface water. Now, when you go to drill a water well there, what you actually be drinking will be some of the chemicals that is underground. If you don't have a regulatory agency to check that before you drill a borehole, a study must be done, it must be approved, fees must be paid, so that you don't give people water that will eventually lead to their death. These are part of the reasons why this bill is all-encompassing, and the Federal Executive Council approved it on the 28th of September 2016. Now, to take us through the philosophy of the bill, basically, the bill, when it is finally enacted, will provide a one-stop shop for all stakeholders in the sector with a compendium of all relevant laws that impact the water resources sector. That's one of the advantages. Secondly, it will clarify the institutional framework for the Nigerian water resources sector with the objective of reducing, if not eliminating, overlaps and duplicity of functions and rules, as earlier explained. Thirdly, to clarify, articulate the separation of rules along the lines of service provision, regulation, and policy, with institutions being specialized in the rules that they are to undertake, creating synergies for efficiency and effectiveness as well. Fourthly, it will create and clarify and ease the way for potential investors in the water sector, thereby reducing or eliminating the legal, regulatory, and other risks that have the impact of elevated project costs as a result of the construction of some of these water assets. Fifthly, the bill intends to eliminate conflicting rules of sector institutions and create seamless synergies among the agencies with focus on professionalizing the sector and encouraging specialization. And finally, to repeal all the obsolete laws that are in the sector, the provisions that impede rather than enhance the achievement of policy objectives. Now, the bill itself contains 14 sections and is divided into 4 areas. The principles and scope, which has the objective of this act, the public trusteeship of water, entitlements to use of the water. That is the first part. The second one is the institutional arrangement, which was enumerated earlier by the leader. It contains sections 2 to 7, which has to do, 1, with the National Water Resources Council, 2, the ministry responsible for water resources, 3, the Nigerian Water Resources Regulatory Commission, 4thly, the River Basin Development Authorities, 5th, the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency, and finally, the National Water Resources Institute, which is the institute, the educational sector of the water resources sector. The third one is the procedural arrangements within the bill, and this includes 4 items. Water resources planning and management, licensing is the second one. The third one is the monitoring, reporting, and information system. And finally, borehole drilling itself. And finally, the bill contains general provisions. What are these general provisions? There are 3 of them: consultation, land matters, and auditing. The second one contains offenses for those that break the laws within this sector. And finally, miscellaneous adaptation, repeal of the existing laws, transitional provisions, and the interpretation. These are basically the components of this bill. All of you are critical stakeholders in this sector because all of us 360 here, from the speaker to all of us here, represent our people. The first thing our people need is water. Without water, that we all know that is what sustains life. I want everybody to take it as a very serious venture. I want all of you to attend the public hearings to make contributions, valuable contributions, because whatever we come up with is what will determine the cost of the safety and the quality of the water that our citizens will have for the next decades to come. Thank you very much, my colleagues. I want you all to support the bill to go for second reading. Thank you.
Honorable Sadiq will be the last contributor.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, my name is Sadiq Ibrahim. I represent Fufore Song Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Adamawa State. It is gladdening, Mr. Speaker, that today this House, the House of the People, will pass for second reading the bill on regulating our ground and surface water resources for the development of agriculture and for good drinking water for Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, in 1978, the federal government, the military federal government under General Obasanjo, established 11 river basin development authorities in this country, from Hadejia River Basin to the Upper Benue, Lower Benue, and the other river basins we have in the southwestern part of the country and the southeastern part of this country. Mr. Speaker, ordinarily, these 11 dams should have been okay for us to have water for agriculture, harvest water when it is raining, so that we can use it during the dry season to farm. And, Mr. Speaker, everybody knows that now in the world, agricultural countries or countries that export agricultural products do not farm during the rainy season. God has blessed this country with a lot of water resources. We have mountains and high-rising steep mountains in this country. Water cascades down, but unfortunately, knowing very well that water from every highland comes to the lowland in rivers and streams and pour into River Niger and Benue, and eventually they pour into the sea and west. So if this bill, as enumerated with the factors that, with the issues that this bill contains, as enumerated by the chairman of the Water Resources Committee, if this bill is passed and it is implemented, Mr. Speaker, I believe that this country will get ourselves water for drinking. Just last week, Mr. Speaker, last weekend, I was in Doma. I slept in Doma and I went to Doma Dam, 3 kilometers away from Doma. That dam that I saw in Doma should have provided water for Doma and Lafia. But today, there is no pipe-borne water in both Doma and Lafia. In Gombe, Dadinkoa Dam is there. Gombe is one of the places where there is hardly any water. In Adamawa, we have the Kiri Dam. Even in the town of Kiri, that is by the side of the dam itself, there is no water. So, Mr. Speaker, I will lend my voice for this bill to be read for the second time so that it will go to your committee. All of us will key in and ensure that water is no longer a problem for Nigeria for both drinking and agriculture. Thank you very much.
And the question is that the bill be now read a second time. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk is now invited to read the long title of the bill.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, a bill for an act to establish a regulatory framework for water resources sector in Nigeria, provide for the equitable and sustainable development, management, use, and conservation of Nigeria's surface water and groundwater resources, and for related matters. Second reading.
The bill is referred to Committee on Water Resources. Second order of the day, honorable colleagues, commencement of debate on the general principles of bill for an act to amend the Council of Ministers Evidence Act, Chapter C, 32, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, to make the provisions of the Act apply to the Executive Council of the Federation and for related matters. Standing in the name of Honorable Gideon Gwani, honorable members who recall the bill was read the first time on Wednesday, 17th May 2017. Now invite Honorable Gwani to move that the bill be now read a second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, my name is Honorable Gideon Gwani. I come from Kaduna State. I represent Kaura Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I rise to move the motion that a bill for an act to amend the Council of Ministers Evidence Act, Cap C-32, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, to make the provisions of the Act apply to the Executive Council of the Federation and for related matters, HB 1027. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Dr. M.S. Abdu.
Right, Honorable Speaker, I remain Honorable Dr. Muhammad Sani Abdu, Al-Qadirikiri Federal Constituency. I'm from Bauchi State. I stand to second for the second reading the bill ably proposed and led by my colleague and friend, Honorable Gideon Gwani. I second.
Honorable Gwani, you cannot lead the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, in line with our responsibilities to make good laws for the peace, order, and good governance of our dear country, Nigeria, as enshrined in the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended in Section 4, subsection 3.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, the said bill before us therein is an existing act, which is Act Cap C32 Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, referred to as the Council of Ministers Evidence Act. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, this bill primarily seeks to amend the Principal Act by substituting the words Council of Ministers with the words Executive Council of the Federation, as contained in Section 144, subsection 1A of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. The bill also seeks to amend the Principal Act by substituting the words Secretary and Deputy Secretary of Government, wherever it appears in the Act, with the words Secretary to the Government of the Federation as contained in the Section 171, subsection 2A of the 99 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, this is a straightforward bill. This bill is long overdue, and it requires our amendment in order to realign the bill and to also reflect the current positions of the Act, so that the Act can apply to the Executive Council of the Federation in line with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I therefore call on you to please support that this bill be read a second time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
This is a very straightforward bill, and it's seeking just a very simple adjustment to the Act. So I'll put the question, and the question is the bill be now read a second time. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it. Clerk is invited to read the long title of the bill.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, a bill for an act to amend the Council of Ministers Evidence Act, Cap C32, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, to make for the provisions of the Act apply to the Executive Council of the Federation and for related matters. Second reading.
Bill is referred to Committee on Justice. Third order of the day, honorable colleagues, commencement of debate on the general principles of a bill for an act to establish the Chartered Polymer Institute of Nigeria to promote, advance, and develop the application of polymer science, engineering, and technology in polymer and allied industries in Nigeria and for related matters, standing in the name of Honorable Edward Gyang Pajok. Honorable members will recall that the bill was read the first time on Wednesday, 17th May 2017. Now I invite Honorable Pajok to move that the bill be now read the second time.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues. My name is Edward Pajok. I represent the South, the East of Plateau State. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues, may I move for the second reading of a bill for an act to establish the Chartered Polymer Institute of Nigeria to promote, advance, and develop the application of polymer science, engineering, and technology in polymer and allied industries in Nigeria and for related matters. I so move.
Any seconder. Honorable Evelyn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Evelyn Omavonwa Oboro is my name, representing Okpe Sapele Uwe Federal Constituency. I am from Delta State. I rise to second the motion, ably moved by my colleague, Honorable Pajok. I so second, Mr. Speaker.
Before I call on Honorable Pajok to lead the debate, it's just a simple announcement here of members of other committee to investigate the issue of Hajj fares. Been told that your meeting is at Suite 434 at 3 p.m. because of the importance of the committee. Announces Honorable Mohammed Bago, sorry. Honorable Pajok, you can now lead the debate, please.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues. Mr. Speaker, the issue of polymers has to do with plastics, rubbers, coatings, adhesives, inks, and allied products. Mr. Speaker, some time ago, some professionals felt concerned about the lack of an organization to handle matters that have to do with polymer in Nigeria. That is polymer science and polymer engineering. And they held a meeting sometime in Lagos. And after that, they registered the Polymer Institute of Nigeria. But Mr. Speaker, just having an institute may not address all the issues that have to do with polymer production. That is because anybody can shortchange the standards that are required for polymer production or even importation. But if you have a chartered institute with the full force of the law, then they can regulate the entire industry so that some persons may be held accountable. And that is the reason behind this bill. Because someone may ask, well, we already have an institute, so why do you now have to charter it and make it an act? We have to make it an act so as to give it full legal backing for the regulation of that trade and industry. Mr. Speaker, in the Constitution, the National Assembly has the exclusive power to designate professional occupations. And this is also another professional occupation. It will also advance the cause of polymer science and polymer engineering. Mr. Speaker, just before now, even the executive bill that has been brought forward, I listened to the debate or the contribution of Honorable, the chairman of the Water Resources Law Committee, and he also mentioned the danger that we face from water, and even plastics. The other day, even on CNN, we saw how some people have taken it as a matter of concern to cleanse seabeds, oceans, and riverbeds because of this. So many plastic bottles that are contained there. They have now become a source of danger and health hazard to human beings. That is why, if you even go to the streets, you see polythene bags. They are being destroyed. They're not being left anywhere, thereby becoming a health hazard. But if we have this institute that is fully chartered, they'll be able to regulate the production of polythene bags and even how they are being handled. Mr. Speaker, it is a very serious matter, and it will make Nigeria also belong to the Committee of Nations, because this issue of polymer has been, it's been taken seriously in so many other countries. So I urge my colleagues to please support this bill. When it goes to the public hearing, the technocrats will come there and they will also put some finishing touches to this bill. I thank my colleagues and I pray that you support this bill. Thank you.
Any contributor to the debate? So I'll put the question. And the question is the bill be now read a second time. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. The ayes have it. Clerks invited to read the long title of the bill.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, a bill for an act to establish the Chartered Polymer Institute of Nigeria to promote, advance, and develop the application of polymer science, engineering, and technology in polymer and allied industries in Nigeria and for related matters. Second reading.
Bill is referred to Committee on Commerce. Fourth order of the day, honorable colleagues, commencement of debate on the general principles of Bill for an Act to amend the National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency Establishment, etc. Act 2006, and for related matters, standing in the name of Honorable Obinna Chidoka. Honorable members will recall that the bill was read the first time on Thursday, 6 April 2017, I now invite Honorable Chidoka to move that the bill be now read a second time.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues. My name is Obinna Chidoka, representing Idemili North, Idemili South Federal Constituency of Anambra State. Mr. Speaker, I rise this morning to move for a bill for an act to amend the National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency Establishment Act 2006 and for other matters, other related matters. I so move, Right Honorable Speaker.
Second, Honorable Jerry Alabusu.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. My name is Jerry Alabusu. I'm from Imo State, representing our law also in federal constituency. Right Honorable Speaker, I rise to second that the bill every moved by Obinna be read a second time. I so second it.
Honorable Obinna, please lead the debate.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Thank you, honorable colleagues. Thank you, Right Honorable Jerry. Right Honorable Speaker, this is also a very straightforward bill, but I will run through it as quickly as possible. For us to do justice to an amendment that is designed to provide a bulwark to all legislative loopholes with respect to oil spill and pollution management in Nigeria. The bill seeks to amend the existing NOSDRA Act, which is fraught with a lot of challenges ranging from lack of effective and adequate provision to sanction violators of Nigeria's oil environment, addresses overlaps in functions in monitoring agencies under the purview of NOSDRA, provide for enforcement and prosecutory powers, as well as address inadequate funding of the agency. This amendment is extended to strengthen and reposition NOSDRA for effective and efficient performances. Mr. Speaker, this amendment will place on the agency the responsibility to prevent, detect, minimize, and respond to all oil spillage, oily waste, gas flare, and obnoxious substances in the petroleum sector in Nigeria. By this, the power of the agency is broadened in scope to cover pollutions like gas, flaring, and other substances arising from oil drilling in Nigeria. We need to see Clause 5 of the bill. The bill consists of 14 clauses, wherein introduces new clauses not in the Principal Act. These clauses are Clause 8, Clause 9, Clause 27, Clause 28, 29, 30, and 31. By this introduction, the subsisting sections are renumbered accordingly. Mr. Speaker, let me give you just one of the highlights and we'll rest our case from the other areas. Clause 6 of the bill seeks to amend the functions of the agency by extending the scope of such functions to include prevention, detection, and general management of oil spill. It also seeks to encourage intercompany relationship by ensuring that they subscribe to membership of Clean Nigeria Association. Also, Clause 6, when amended by introducing Section 2 or Section 3 and places on any oil company the responsibility, which is very important, sir, the responsibility to report oil spill occasioned by its operation. Such report must be in writing or by fact electronic means, not less than 24 hours of such occurrences. In the Niger Delta region, Mr. Speaker, and some other areas in Nigeria where there is oil spill, the oil companies don't take responsibility. They don't even report it. And when you go there, the whole area is devastated. Failure to report attracts a fine of 2 million naira per day. If you don't report, we charge you 2 million naira per day. And subsection 3 of the amended subsection 6 criminalizes failure to clean up impacted sites in the case of oil spill and gas flaring within 2 weeks after the occurrence, and imposes a fine of not less than 5 million naira or imprisonment on conviction for a term not exceeding 2 years or both. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, what we intend to do is to be sure that people own up to their responsibility. You've seen a situation where there was a waste somewhere in Escravos, and that waste appears somewhere in Koko in Delta State. And when such happens, nobody takes responsibility. We need to put people behind bars for endangering the lives of whole communities anywhere in Nigeria, whether from the north, from the east, to the west, or to the south of Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, in abridging my presentation this morning, in 1990, the U.S. Congress enacted the Oil Pollution Act to cure the weaknesses and challenges of Clean Water Act in dealing with oil spill. These flaws were noted after the prosecution of ExxonMobil for the Valdez spill. The U.S. Oil Pollution Act 1990 provided a robust framework for oil spills. Honorable members, the U.S. Oil Pollution Act 1990 addressed some challenges aimed at mitigating the effects of oil spills such as this: providing a comprehensive federal liability scheme which addresses all discharge to navigate waters and economic exclusive zones and shorelines; tough criminal penalties; a single unified federal fund called the Oil Spill Liability Trust Fund to pay for cleanup and the cost of the federal response to spill, and higher civic responsibilities for spill of oil and hazardous substances, among others. Finally, Mr. Speaker, in Africa, oil producers like Ghana and Angola have strong legal frameworks for managing environmental degradation from oil exploration. For example, in Ghana, in the Petroleum Exploration and Production Act of 2010, contains detailed provisions relating to environmental management in the course of oil and gas exploration. Mr. Speaker, just finally, just some years back, when an oil company spilled all their tanker oil into the ocean, and they were fined only about $3 million or $5 million, till date, they have never paid it. Nobody has held liability for it. In America, the Valdez spill, they were charged $60 billion US, and they were able to pay it. Right, Honorable Speaker, honorable members, the bill makes laudable move in harmonizing all legislations and brought in enforcement and compliance under the regulation of agency. We want to avoid duplication of allowed functions and duties by agencies and reduce interagency rivalry. The bill is laudable concept and objective as it seeks to improve on the current oil pollution management regime. With this blame game between operators and communities will die down as it assists international oil companies in introducing proactive measures that can avoid pollution and at the same time help the regulator punish only genuine cases of oil pollution while flimsy ones are eliminated and reduced. Right, Honorable Speaker, honorable members, I seek your valued support to have this bill be read a second time on this floor. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Thank you, members, and thank you, Honorable Jerry.
Honorable Rita Oje.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and distinguished colleagues. My name is Rita Oji, member representing Ajeron of the Federal Constituency. I'm from Lagos State. Mr. Speaker, I want to lend my voice to this important bill based on what I saw just 2 weeks of this research in my own local government. The issue of Nostra Act is like the issue of Moses and the Promised Land, where Moses gets to a certain level but cannot enter the Promised Land. But with the introduction of this Section 8 and 9 through the amendment of this bill, this agency will have the power to get to the level where the negligence of oil facilities and the jetties across the country could be held responsible for the acts and omissions they carry out in their daily operations. Mr. Speaker and distinguished colleagues, it's not a story that Ajeromi Felodo houses most of the jetties in our Papa area where we have Ibafo. Mr. Speaker, sir, for the past 2 weeks, the oil spillage from the jetties has taken over Ibafo community to the extent that you cannot walk freely from that community coming out from your own house due to the activities of the jetties. And the Nostra could not do anything when we called them upon. The fact is that they are not allowed to take certain measures to enter the jetties that house these people, vicariously liable because the law establishing them does not allow them to enter the premises to carry out these functions. Mr. Speaker, sir, Section 9.2, which is in line with the process of enabling the agency to carry out this function, that will stop, sir. Today, the tankers that are in all the Apapa divisions are taking over Ajegule as a parking stage. And as they were parking, they were spilling oil from the same jetty, and they were going through to the extent that you can spend 10 hours just to move from your house to the next place because of the activities of this jetty. And as they were parking in the morning, they spill the fuel, they spill the oil, and they make sure that communities that are living right inside the street cannot light on fire because of fear of fire catching or causing problems in the community. And when we seek the authorities for assistance, the response is there are certain limitations to where they can carry out the function. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, and distinguished colleagues, I rise to support this bill because if this Section 8 and 9 was allowed to go into Nostra Act, it will enable the agencies to go after these companies and the facilities they are using, including their customers, that leave this oil and queue in line and
Gisalo, take your seat, please.
I am lending my support because of the pains and troubles the communities are passing through because they are housing these jetties who cannot, they have become the board bosses of the communities. They only do and go into community leaders and give 1 naira or 2 naira to make sure that they shut down the voices of the masses. So, Mr. Speaker and distinguished colleagues, I urge all of us to assist in making sure that this bill passes the second reading. And finally, when it comes into being, we will be able to say, oh, Nostra, you go after these people that are blocking the premises of people with their fuel and diesel, and they're spilling all over the whole community without anybody coming to the aid of the community. Mr. Speaker, sir, because of this inaptitude, because of this, there's no enabling law empowering the Nostra to take on these people in their private capacities, sir, there is a serious cholera that happened in my constituency, where from Apapa, the oil that came out from the jetty led to hospitalization of more than 30 people. Nobody takes the responsibility, and the Nostra cannot go in because the law does not allow them. So I support this bill on this premise that this Section 8 and 9 be included, and the bill will help not to save life alone, to bring peace, health, and nurture the environment for us, for the youth, and for the aged. I lend my support to this bill, Mr. Speaker and distinguished colleagues.
Honorable Jerry Alaboso.
Right, Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. My colleagues, my name is Jerry Alaboso. I'm from Imo State, once more, representing Olo, also an federal constituency. Mr. Speaker, when I stood up to second the proposal by Obina, he thought I was going to say otherwise. Because on looking at
go and sit in your seat.
On looking at the other paper, I tried to allege that it was not very comprehensive, Mr. Speaker. But when I look at the legislative debate as presented by him, I'm sure that I would have made a mistake. Mr. Speaker, I'm coming from an oil producing area. Olu zone produces oil in Imo State. And as a result, I will naturally support the bill every moved by Obina Chiluka. Especially the areas, Mr. Speaker, that talks about interagency or intercompany cooperation. Because hitherto we are talking about detection of oil pollution and so on. But as stated by Obina, Mr. Speaker, this bill talks about management also. It talks about interagency cooperation, intercompany cooperation in management of oil pollution. So, Mr. Speaker, instead of wasting our time debating, I'm satisfied with the comprehensive nature of what you put down in the legislative debates. And therefore urge all members, especially those who are ranking by age, to support this bill, Mr. Speaker, for the second reading, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
I'm sure you have lost that ranking. The question is that the bill be now read a second time. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it. Clerks are invited to read the long title of the bill.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, a bill for an act to amend the National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency Establishment, etc. Act 2006 and for other related matters. Second reading.
Bill is referred to Committee on Environment and Habitat. Fifth order of the day, honorable colleagues, commencement of debate on the general principles of a bill for an act to amend the Nigeria Communications Commission Act, Chapter N97, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to provide for the payment of all monies received by the Commission into the Federation account, in accordance with Section 162 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, and for related matters, standing in the name of Honorable Gyang Istefanus Dung. Honorable members who recall the bill was read the first time on Wednesday, 8 March 2017. And I invite Honorable Dung to move that the bill be now read the second time.
Well, Mr. Speaker, even though Honorable Gyang is on the floor, he has mandated me to move that this bill be stepped down for further consultation. I therefore move to step it down.
Order. Item 5 on the order paper, stepped down by leave of the House. Sixth order of the day.
Go back to your seat.
Sixth order of the day, honorable colleagues, a motion on call for repair of guards' protective rails on the bridges at Kotonkarfe, Kogi State, standing in the name of Honorable Tony Nwoye. Honorable Nwoye is not invited to move the motion. I'm afraid, Chairman. Oh, okay. Tony is not on the floor. I thought you were busy campaigning. Can you speak to your mic, please?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, my name is Dr. Tony Nwoye. I represent the people of Anambra East, Anambra West Federal Constituency. I'm from Anambra State. Mr. Speaker, a motion for repair of protective rails on the bridges at the Kota Cafe, Kogi State. The House notes that the most portions of the protective rails on the three bridges at Kota Cafe near the Motala Mahala Bridge along the Abuja-Lokoja Highway have been ripped off. Also notes that the absence of the protective rails constitutes grave risk to motorists plying the motor highway that links the southern and northern halves of Nigeria. Aware that accidents have occurred on those bridges, leading to loss of lives as a result of the absence of the protective rails, which could have lessened the severity of those accidents and prevented the vehicles from plunging into the river, thereby saving lives. Cognizant of the need for repair of the protective rails of the mentioned bridges, the House is urged to resolve as follows: to urge the Federal Ministry of Power, Works and Housing to urgently repair the protective rails on the three bridges at Kota Cafe, Kogi State. Secondly, to mandate the Committee on Works
to mandate the Committee on Works for compliance. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Seconder, the Honorable Obasa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, I'm Honorable Tajuddin Adekunle Obasa, representing the Ojo Federal Constituency of Lagos State. I arise to second the motion heavily moved.
Silence, please. Please, honorable members, please take your seat.
Thank you.
This is an infrastructure-related motion, and in line with the provisions of our relevant rules, I'll put the question. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. The ayes have it. Seventh order of the day, honorable colleagues, is a motion on need to address the persistent refusal of electricity distribution companies, DISCOs, to connect electrified towns and villages to the national grid, standing in the name of Honorable Odebumi Olusegun Dokun. Honorable Odebumi is now invited to move the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleague, Odebumi Shegun is my name. I represent the good people of Surulere Ogolua Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I rise this morning to raise a motion need to address the persistent refusal of electricity distribution company, DISCO, to connect electrified towns and villages to the national grid. The House notes that government at all levels are striving very diligently to better the living standard of Nigerians through provisions of the new infrastructural facilities, which include electrifications of the rural area as the catalyst for the nation's overall development. Also note that since the inception of the current democratic dispensation, almost all the states of the Federation have completed many electrification projects which are yet to be connected to the national grid due to the refusal of the electricity distribution company, DISCO, to do so on the ground that it is not quantifiable to the billions of naira expended on such projects and the benefit available to the communities. Observe that the refusal of DISCOs to connect the towns, even when all conditions have been met, is frustrating government's effort over the years to provide electricity for the people. Resolved to mandate the Committee on Power to interface with the electricity distribution company with a view to ensuring the connection of all completed electrification projects to the national grid and report back to the House within 6 weeks for further legislative action. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Seconder, Honorable Rano.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues. Mohammed Sani Ali Ulano is my name from Kano State. I rise to second the motion ably moved by my colleague.
I so second.
Honorable Dokun, please lead the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, the motion is a straightforward motion, and I'm raising this motion based on a personal experience in my constituency. So therefore, I will use my constituency as a subject of discussion to extend it to the over 360 federal constituency in the nation. Mr. Speaker, in the last few years, I've been able to embark on electrification projects in my constituency. And I can see my colleagues also all over the federations doing such projects. But the problem facing by the community to connect all those projects that have been completed, there are some projects that have been completed in the last 1 year that are yet to be connected to the national grid due to one flimsy excuse by the DISCO at the various levels in each various state. Mr. Speaker, there's need for this House to interface with the DISCO through the committee so that we can know what is the exact problem facing them. Because from my own experience, it caused me to intervene even with my personal money to make sure some things are done for my community in my place to benefit just for the connection to the national grid. And how much more many of the community that may not even have somebody to call upon to intervene for them. Mr. Speaker, there's need. This is a national work. And the government is serving the nation in order to give social amenities to the citizens. By the time the government give, maybe even at the state level, giving this project to the community, just to connect alone, then become a problem that will be lying down there for like years. Mr. Speaker, there are many, even if we cannot go census of the projects that have been completed, it might be even good for us because there are many projects, billions of naira that have been, of this nation that have been put on this project that have been lying there without connecting with just little things to make sure the people are benefiting from it. So, Mr. Speaker, that's the reason why I came up with this motion from my experience, and I'm even able to intervene with the agency and also establish this problem. So there's need for this house to intervene within the agency and the DISCO so that Nigerian people can benefit from this project. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
This is a motion bordering on utility. I'll put the question. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. The ayes have it. Move to the eighth order of the day, which is a motion on need to avert the imminent closure of University of Maiduguri due to rising insecurity occasioned by the spate of suicide bomb attacks, standing in the name of Honorable Mohammed Tahir Monguno and 15 others. Honorable Monguno is now invited to move the motion.
Madam. Honorable Speaker, honorable members, my name is Mohammed Tahir Monguno. I represent Martie Monguno Nganzai Federal Constituency of Borno State. My motion reads thus: need to avert the imminent closure of University of Maiduguri due to rising insecurity occasioned by the spate of suicide bomb attacks. The House notes the disturbing trend of rising insecurity at the University of Maiduguri, one of the foremost institutions of learning in Nigeria. Also note that due to the location of that great institution in Maiduguri, which is the epicenter of the protracted Boko Haram insurgency, the school is gradually but persistently becoming a sub-target for the Boko Haram insurgents. Concerned that this foremost institution, which can safely be described as the institution standing in Maiduguri following the advent of Boko Haram insurgency in the northeast, is on the verge of caving in to the relentless assault on it by the insurgents. Observes that in recent times, the insurgents have adopted the tactics of suicide bombings targeted at the institution with a view to bringing the university down, a situation that must not be allowed to happen. Acknowledge that this unfortunate new wave of violence, which is drawing public outcry and condemnation from home and abroad, has heightened the fears that the once most peaceful and globally competitive center of multicultural research and learning may be converted into other theater of war. Recalls that the institution used to be the jewel of and the main signpost of academic excellence in Nigeria, boasting of both and attracting some of the best and finest professors from across the globe. Also concerned that the university has lost some of its best hands to the current insecurity on the campus, notably late Professor Ali Usman Mani, who was killed along with 2 other students when the institution was attacked by suicide bombers on Monday, 16 January 2017. Aware that 70 professors, several students and staff of the university at the height of the insecurity in the campus
to other institutions within and outside the country out of fear. Also aware that between 16th and 25th June 2017, the university community was hit with 6 suicide bomb blasts, which resulted in the death of 19 students and staff. Resolves to urge the federal government to urgently intervene and put in place extraordinary measures to ensure restoration of peace and tranquility to the University of Maiduguri, including the immediate perimeter fencing of the school and the deployment of critical security systems to ensure full surveillance and detection of security breaches. Also urge the security agencies to submit a comprehensive plan of action to maintain constant security of the university in particular and the host community of the school in general to the House, and to mandate the Committee on Tertiary Education and Services to ensure implementation and report back to the House within 4 weeks for further legislative action. I so move.
Seconder, Honorable Nena Lendu Keja.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir, for yielding the floor to me. My name is Nena Elendu KJ, member representing Bende Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm from Abia State. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion is very eloquently moved by Honorable Mongunu. I so second.
Honorable Mongunu, please lead the debate.
Honorable Speaker, foreign members, I don't want to reiterate the fact that the University of Maiduguri is one of the second generation universities that was established in this country. And when it was established, it serves the whole of the Northeast geopolitical zone before the proliferation of state universities, private universities, and other federal government established universities. The University of Maiduguri serves the whole of the northeastern state and beyond. And because of the pivotal role that it plays as a center of academic excellence and learning within the Northeast geopolitical zone, it attracts scholars for all the nooks and crannies of the world, and Nigeria, as well as students from all the nooks and crannies of the world and Nigeria. It is a center of learning. And one of the main reasons that brought about the Boko Haram insurgency is the fact that to them, Western education is evil. Literally translated, Boko Haram means Western education is evil. And as a result of that, the University of Maiduguri is a prime target to the Boko Haram insurgents because they don't want any form of Western education being impacted on the citizens of Nigeria. So as a result of that, the University of Maiduguri has been subjected to a series of attacks by Boko Haram insurgents, leading to the loss of lives of professors, students, and other academic staff of the university. And because of the constancy of the attacks, the atmosphere of peaceful learning is now threatened to the extent that the university is now considering total closure if steps are not taken with a view to guaranteeing the security of the students, the staff, and staff of the university. So because of that, there is need, as enumerated in my prayer, for the security agencies to take steps with a view to ameliorating this situation so that this university that serves the whole of the Northeast region will not be closed, and then the Boko Haram insurgents will think that their goal of closing the university has been achieved. And the only way we can guarantee peaceful learning in the university is by the security agencies to take proactive measures as prayed for in the motion paper, as well as the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, to construct a perimeter fence around the university with a view to forestalling these Boko Haram insurgents gaining access into the university and then committing their nefarious activity. So I urge my colleagues to support this passage of this motion so that people in the Northeast will not be deprived of the use of the University of Maiduguri. Thank you.
Rules and business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Okay, Jeff. I represent the good people of Buru.
Well, this is where we call it a day on today's live broadcast of the plenary of the House of Representatives. Members received 7 petitions and then considered 2 motions and 5 bills. And one of these bills is a bill that seeks to establish a regulatory framework for the management of water resources in Nigeria. That bill, among other issues, seeks to establish a National Council for Water Resources, and that council, well, will be chaired by the Minister of Water Resources. Well, at this point in time, we will now take you to our studios for the continuation of the scheduled program for today. I am Ignatius Nkwo, and on behalf of our outside broadcast crew, I say bye for now and enjoy your weekend.